Breaking news! The future of the Rams' offensive line is being discussed behind the scenes, and man, this has suddenly become one of the biggest topics surrounding the team. 4 important starting players are approaching a moment that could completely reshape the group over the next few years. Yes, my friends, we need to talk about this. But before we continue, I want to hear from you. How long have you been a Rams fan? The other day, I saw many people commenting that they attended Rams games back in the 1960s. Man, that's incredible. If you're a die-hard Rams fan, hit the like button just so I know. And if you want, right, go Rams. Let's go to the Super Bowl. Now, let's talk about these 4 players. Warren McClendon Jr., Steve Avila, Kevin Dotson, and Coleman Shelton are at the center of a situation that forces the organization to make difficult decisions, and the outcome could determine the future makeup of the offensive line. What makes this discussion so relevant is the fact that the starting unit performed exceptionally well when healthy. The offensive line established itself as one of the strongest groups on the team, protecting the quarterback efficiently and allowing the offense to operate at an extremely high level. The continuity of the group ensured the offense functioned smoothly, but now the financial side of the roster is beginning to become a major factor. At first glance, the projected salary cap figures appear manageable. Although there is significant cap space available over the next few seasons, important decisions are approaching. Major contracts expected for key players at other positions on the roster could consume a substantial portion of that financial flexibility. Given this reality, the organization cannot simply re-sign every offensive lineman without carefully evaluating who represents the best long-term investment. The good news is that several potential mechanisms exist to create additional cap space. Contract restructures involving defensive players could provide significant flexibility if the team decides to use those options. Those moves could potentially create enough room to retain some important offensive line pieces, while still allowing other roster decisions to take place. However, even with additional flexibility, the Rams may still need to choose between certain players rather than keeping everybody together. The first major name in this discussion is Warren McClendon Jr. For much of the regular season, McClendon looked like one of the strongest right tackles in football. His numbers reflected remarkable consistency. He allowed very little pressure, surrendered only 1 sack during the regular season, and became an extremely dependable pass protector. The pressure rate he allowed ranked among the lowest for starting right tackles. Those performances naturally created expectations that the Rams would prioritize keeping him long-term. There were reports earlier that the organization showed interest in extending McClendon, and there was concern that waiting too long could increase his future value if he continued to perform at a high level. But circumstances may have changed. The biggest question surrounding McClendon comes from the postseason. The regular season version of Warren McClendon and the playoff version appeared to be 2 very different players. During the playoffs, the pressure numbers increased, the overall performance declined, and the consistency that defined his regular season play was no longer present. That does not erase what he accomplished. It does not suddenly mean he is no longer a valuable player. But when a team has high expectations, playoff performances become extremely important. The biggest moments often influence the largest decisions, and the Rams may want to see McClendon prove that his regular season production can carry into those pressure situations. That may explain why no major decision has happened yet. The organization could simply be waiting to see another season before committing to a long-term extension. If McClendon returns to his regular season level and performs well in the biggest games, his case becomes much stronger. Even with the playoff struggles, there remains a strong argument for keeping him. He played excellent football over a larger sample size, and betting on his overall body of work may ultimately be the direction the team chooses. Another player drawing significant attention is Steve Avila. Avila has become one of the most energetic personalities on the roster. His enthusiasm, visible energy, and presence around the team have made him a noticeable figure. Every appearance seems to show a player who brings excitement and emotion to the field. But the discussion is not only about personality. Avila has also developed into a solid contributor on the field. He has played multiple positions, although the center experience proved somewhat difficult. Once he settled back into left guard, his performance improved considerably. His grading numbers were strong, he allowed very few sacks, and he demonstrated reliability over a large number of pass-blocking snaps. Perhaps the most important factor in Avila's case is age. He remains younger than Kevin Dotson, and youth often becomes valuable when organizations make long-term decisions. Younger players can still develop further, and teams frequently hope that another step forward is coming. The question is whether that next step arrives soon. The Rams may view 2026 as the season that determines Avila's future. If he elevates his game to another level, his chances of remaining with the organization increase dramatically. But there is another player standing directly in the middle of this conversation: Kevin Dotson. Dotson has become one of the most dependable members of the offensive line since arriving in Los Angeles. His acquisition may not have generated enormous headlines at the time, but his impact has become impossible to ignore. He has consistently played at a high level. He fits the offensive scheme well. He has delivered strong performances year after year. And perhaps most importantly, he has become one of the most reliable players on the line. Dotson will be older than Avila, but his level of play continues to remain extremely high. His production, consistency, and experience create a difficult decision, because the Rams may eventually need to choose between their two guards. That possibility appears increasingly realistic. Keeping both players could become financially difficult, depending on future contracts elsewhere on the roster. If that happens, the organization may evaluate who gives them the strongest combination of production, value, and long-term stability. For many observers, Dotson currently holds the advantage. The reason is simple. He has already proven himself over multiple seasons. He has shown consistency. He has demonstrated that he can perform at a very high level, and he has become one of the offensive line's most trusted players. There is also another factor influencing this situation: the selection of Keegan Trow. The expectation appears to be that the young player eventually develops into a starting option. Maybe that does not happen immediately, but the long-term vision may require him to become part of the offensive line rotation. If that occurs, one of the guard positions could become available, and that possibility directly affects both Avila and Dotson. The organization may prefer to wait. Rather than rushing to make a decision today, the Rams can allow another season to unfold. If Avila takes a major step forward, the equation changes. If Dotson continues performing at an elite level, his value becomes even clearer. This patient approach seems consistent with several other contract situations. The organization has shown a willingness to wait rather than immediately complete extensions. While that strategy can sometimes increase future costs, it also provides additional information before major financial commitments are made. That brings us to Coleman Shelton. Among these four players, Shelton may face the most difficult path toward a new contract. This does not mean he lacks value. He has contributed. He has started games. He has helped stabilize the offensive line. But when comparing him to the rest of the group, he appears to be the most replaceable option. The evaluations suggest that his performance has not reached the same level as some of the other starters. The pressure numbers allowed and the overall grading indicate that the center position could potentially be upgraded. This becomes especially important when considering future costs. Even a relatively modest contract at the center position must be weighed against the possibility of finding a younger and cheaper alternative. The draft could become a solution. The Rams may look for a young center prospect capable of starting early in his career. Another possibility already exists on the roster. Bo Limmer remains an option. He played center at Arkansas and showed positive signs earlier in his development. Although his path became more complicated after the return of Coleman Shelton, his presence gives the organization another potential answer if they choose not to re-sign Shelton. This creates several possible outcomes. The Rams could draft a center. They could elevate Bo Limmer. They could search for a lower-cost veteran. Or they could still decide to keep Shelton. But among the four names being discussed, Shelton appears to have the least secure future. Looking at all four players together creates an interesting picture. Warren McClendon represents upside and strong regular season performance. Steve Avila represents youth and potential growth. Kevin Dotson represents consistency and proven production. Coleman Shelton represents experience, but also the possibility of replacement. If decisions had to be made immediately, the likely outcomes become clearer. McClendon appears worth keeping because of his body of work and the importance of maintaining stability at tackle. Dotson appears worth keeping because he has become one of the most dependable players on the line. Avila remains a difficult decision because his future may depend on another season of development. Shelton appears to face the strongest competition for his position. Yet the most important point in this entire discussion is that nothing is final. The 2026 season could change everything. A breakout season could alter contract priorities. An unexpected decline could change evaluations. Injuries, development, and performance all influence these decisions. The Rams may prefer to gather one more season of evidence before making permanent commitments. That patience may frustrate some fans who want immediate answers, but from a roster-building standpoint, it allows the organization to evaluate every possible outcome. The offensive line remains one of the foundations of this football team. The performances of these four players over the next season may determine not only their own futures, but also the future identity of the entire unit. The regular season success of Warren McClendon, the energy and growth of Steve Avila, the consistency of Kevin Dotson, and the uncertainty surrounding Coleman Shelton have created one of the most fascinating roster stories to watch. And perhaps the biggest question remains simple. If the Rams can only keep certain members of this group, which players should receive those long-term commitments? Do you believe Warren McClendon deserves an extension despite the playoff struggles? Would you choose Steve Avila's youth or Kevin Dotson's consistency? And what should happen at center with Coleman Shelton? Leave your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and click the video appearing on your screen, because the latest Rams updates and discussions are right here.